welcome in to King Whale's album review party. We were originally going to do this as like the end of the Drake Kendrick Lamar beef episode. However, that episode ended up taking longer than we were thinking, and this concept became bigger than I was anticipating. So now we are dedicating an entire episode to it. But first, I have to introduce you to my incredible friends that are on the podcast. My cousin Caleb is joining us again.
Howdy, howdy.
And of course, my best friend Ty, or the root of all love, as he's known as today.
Thank you. I birthed love from my heart. You're welcome.
Oh,
Birthed love from my heart. Yeah.
that must have hurt.
It probably didn't feel. Well, maybe it felt good because it is.
I am so old. I am before time itself.
So anyway,
Dang.
so I saw this concept on I think it was on Instagram, and someone was asking the stars of this Prime Video of the Idea of You Prime Video premiere or whatever movie that was, and the interviewer was like, if you could make a supergroup of 4 musicians or artists, who would you make? And like one of them was like, oh, I'd do Dolly Parton, Beyonce, and like they just like basically named their 4 favorite musicians. And I'm like, okay, that's cool, but it's like I feel like this is deeper than just like who are your 4 favorite musicians? Because if I wanted to know your 4 favorite musicians, I'd ask you who are your 4 favorite musicians. No, I want to know who would you put together for a supergroup. Like if they're in the studio, these are the only people recording. They have to play all the instruments. If they're performing, it's only these 4. Like, who would you need as far as talent, versatility? And it created such an awesome debate. And so I told you guys about the concept, but we don't know who each other picked. So we're all going to be surprised with everybody. And I think Ty came up with a name for his group. So I think we got to start with him. So Ty, in your super group, who would you pick? Which 4 musicians?
So to start it off, I must say my thought process behind this, because I want to make it clear, these are not necessarily my 4 favorites by any means, but coming up with a super group, I had to think of the kind of sound I wanted to hear from these musicians. And that's kind of like my starting place. So I started with, I wanted to have a funky, soulful record of these 4 people. And I did happen to start with my all-time favorite musician, a personal musical hero of mine, and that will be Flea, the bassist of the Red Hot Chili Peppers.
Okay.
He, favorite band of all time, love them to death. He is such a phenomenal bassist. When I was in high school and I was learning guitar, I wanted to play the bass like Flea. Among many other bassists, Neil Peart was also up there of Rush fame, but specifically Flea, because the way he talked about music was all about love. He is a very love-focused person. He cares about the craft. He cares about the origins. He's a huge jazz head. In fact, he's a big jazz trumpeter as well. Not in Red Hot Chili Peppers, but he plays the trumpet. And he started like a school for kids to learn jazz and music at an early age. This man bleeds music, and he's wicked on the bass. If you've ever seen him play, he's playing things like at one point, early in their career, he was playing the bass so hard that he tore his thumb open, and stagehands had to come and pour super glue in the wound between songs to keep it sealed so that he could continue to play.
Jesus.
Right?
Wildly dedicated to the craft.
I'm like, if I cut my lip on something, I just like don't play saxophone for like a week. Like,
yeah.
I'm gonna cut my finger and keep playing. What is that?
So you're saying you're a normal, sane person, is what you're saying?
Yeah, I'd tap out.
Yeah.
As any of us would. So he was like the beginning of it, and I figured he would cover the bass section. He would cover also any kind of trumpet to help bring up any kind of brass
That is
in the
awesome.
background.
Yeah.
Then I thought, who would be a good vocalist on this kind of, because he has the range to play simple backing bass and he can really take the bass to the front. I thought I would love, love, love to hear his bass paired with Erica Badu. I
As your
want
singer.
Mm.
I
What?
want to hear her sing over a Flea bass track. I want that. I want that. I could end it right here and just those two make an album and I'd be set.
That
I
would be
want those two to play together.
I was not expecting that.
But then I thought, okay, I need some kind of drum. I need to bring up, I
Hmm.
need to like flesh out the percussion in the back. Who do I think could drum in this duo?
Now I have two guesses as who I think you're gonna pick. Do you want to
Okay.
hear them?
Yes, yes, please.
I either think you're gonna pick Anderson Paak
Hmm.
or Questlove.
Hmm.
Hmm.
Caleb, do you have any guesses you want to throw out?
No, I don't feel like I have enough context. This is my
Fair.
second time, you know?
Fair. No, fair enough. Will, you picked the two drummers that I was in a toss-up between, and I
Right.
ended with Questlove.
You did.
I
Okay.
ended
That's
with
hilarious.
Questlove just because I don't know. I just think I like his drumming more. Like
Okay.
Mm.
I want to hear him. I think his track record is more of the sound I want to go for, more than Anderson Paak. He's incredible, amazing, but I think later on in his career, he's become way more into the vocalist side, and I wanted to focus more on Erica for the vocals of this supergroup.
Interesting. Okay.
Mm.
So we've got Flea, Erica Badu, and Questlove. My final pick is I needed some kind of guitar. And I wanted to also represent more of like the rock background of what I enjoy.
Mm-hmm.
So I picked David Gilmour of Pink Floyd fame,
Okay.
specifically
Okay.
because he's a fantastic guitarist, number one, but I think he can bring in this psychedelic side, which pairs well with Flea's bass that he's played a lot in their past that they can tackle. But he can also bring it to like a jazzier level at times. He's an amazing guitarist. And I think the four of them doing this, like, I don't know, like neo funk soul kind of sound is just like, oh, it's got me so excited. I wish it was a real group
Like it
that
was actually
released an
happening.
album.
That's
Hmm.
funny. So like I kind of like based upon like the Red Hot Chili Peppers basis is not a surprise because that's one of your favorite bands. I
Hmm.
kind of thought you maybe would choose Dave Grohl as your lead vocalist.
Hmm.
Because he's the singer for why is his band name escaping me?
They
It's on the
they
tip of my
fight
tongue.
foos.
Foo Fighters, right? Yes.
Mm.
Sorry, he's been in a lot of bands, so I was like, but I also didn't know if he played guitar too.
He
Um,
does
but I
guitar, vocals, and drums,
and drums,
actually.
okay. But you
And you know
went for
what? If I
like,
wanted to go more rock, I totally would have gone because I love Dave Grohl. I think he's
mhm,
like a really iconic musician and a musician I look up to in that space. But yeah, I wanted to match the sound first. So that's why I say like these are not like my four like favorite musicians of all time, but for
yeah.
this sound that I was like crafting, oh,
The root of all love made me think that it was going to be Questlove, but I only
mhm,
guessed Anderson Paak because I thought you might want to hear how his vocals and Erica Badu's vocals go together. Because Anderson Paak
mhm,
can play drums while singing, and so having like kind of like that male female perspective, you also would kind of have a rapper too. Because Anderson Paak, he's just so versatile, like a drummer, a rapper, and a singer. So that's why I like guessed Anderson Paak, but like based upon the band, the name of the band. Questlove does make a lot of sense.
and I think like for guitar, like I prefer personally Jimi Hendrix, and he's someone that I
Mm.
was thinking a lot more of.
And you could use
Man,
them if you want to.
I could, but I think David Gilmour, what I've heard of him is more closer to the sound that I would want of these four. Not that Hendrix couldn't do it, But I was trying to just think of like what have they done before to influence what they could do here.
Mm. Okay, makes sense. Wow, that was a thrill ride right there. I was not expecting you to go more of the such a R&B kind of soul route.
Hmm.
Hmm.
Yeah, I wasn't really either, but as soon as like Erica popped into my brain, I was like, every time I tried to remove her from the list, it felt wrong. And I'm like, I think
Hmm.
deep down, I want to keep her in the super group for whatever reason. Because at like one point, I played around with Andre 3000 because I
Hmm.
Oh,
love
yeah.
his rapping style. And just like we haven't heard an Andre album in so long, like where he's
And,
rapping, not just
and
playing the flute, but like I want to hear him
yeah,
rap.
Yeah,
I was gonna
exactly.
say because you have the flute and he plays guitar really well too.
Right, but it's just like no, I wanted Erica more and I wanted to like
Okay.
to focus it on her and then Flea I felt like I couldn't remove either. So Questlove and David Gilmour were more like the backing for those two as like my centerpiece.
Hmm.
Okay. Very intriguing. The root of all love.
The root of all love.
Well, I
Solid.
love it. I
So how about you, Will? What have you come up with?
so for my group, I'm gonna tell you who I was like going back and forth between as well.
Yeah.
Um, and what ultimately made the decision. So I kind of did it like drums, bass, piano, and lead vocals, or like
Okay.
piano rhythm instrument kind of.
Hmm.
So for drums, I also went with Questlove.
Yeah. Let's.
And for me, it was a choice between him and Anderson .Paak
Hmm.
because I really wanted the vocalist who could also play drums.
Hmm.
But the reason why Questlove ran one out is because I want this group to also do jazz. And I feel
Mm.
like that's something I know Questlove can do. I don't know if Anderson .Paak can do it. But I know
Hmm.
Questlove can play authentic jazz because that's where he comes from in Philly. And that's
Right.
how we met Black Thought and it evolved into like this hip hop jazz. And
Right.
Hmm.
so I think that like just me wanting to have jazz in there made Questlove be the guy because
Yeah.
like when you see with the other guys that I chose, you'll see why I wanted to have like a jazz drummer, someone I knew I could do jazz, but that's kind of why it ended up being there.
Okay.
So
So
drums
so
I
is
have
he kind of
Questlove as
like
well.
is he kind
Mhm.
of like the centerpiece for like the sound like you're going for?
The centerpiece is actually the bassist,
Oh.
which you guys aren't going to see
Oh.
because his music, I feel like, because I also want this group to just do whatever jazz, R&B, hip hop, pop. If they want to do a country song, I want them to feel like we can go do a country song, right? And so for the bassist,
Can
I
I guess?
chose, go ahead,
I have a guess.
go ahead. I think you
Is it
might
is it Thundercat?
close. It is not Thundercat.
Okay.
It would, if I wanted like a really good technical bass player,
Hmm.
I would have chosen Thundercat. But my bass player is actually Ty Dolla Sign.
Oh,
Yep,
oh, that's
Ty
yep.
not, that's
Ty Dolla
crazy,
Sign?
Ty Dolla
right?
Sign.
Oh my gosh. Okay.
Right. And mainly it's because of that versatility. Like he's not the I don't think he's like the greatest bass player out there. Like I definitely would trust Thundercat to do bass more than I would trust like Ty Dolla Sign.
Hmm.
But I feel like number one, Ty Dolla Sign could learn because he knows Questlove and he knows the other guy on here really well. So if he needed to just play the root of every chord, I feel like he could do that. Um, and he played bass live with Chance when they performed Blessings on the Jimmy Fallon show. He either
Hmm.
played bass or guitar, but basically he can play bass and guitar, and he's an amazing singer and he's also a
Amazing
producer,
singer.
an
Hmm.
amazing singer. Yeah. And so because he can play bass and guitar, that gives me another vocalist on top of having a bassist. If we want to switch to having a guitarist, he can switch and play guitar. And someone else could maybe play bass, or maybe they just would just have a guitarist. Oh, knocking everything over here. Getting so excited about it. But
Wow.
I was like, also with his production style, because Ty Dolla Sign has quite literally done everything from
Hmm.
EDM, pop, trap, R&B. He's done every kind of hip hop to neo soul to heavy trap. He's done every kind of R&B. Like his production repertoire and what he can do is so vast. It would really help there be no limit. So like if they're in the studio, he could just help them create whatever it is that they wanted.
That
So that is my basis.
I'm still mind blown
You
from
didn't
the
see it.
Ty Dolla Sign pick.
Right?
That
Now, is that
is
because did you know that Ty Dolla Sign played bass, or is that just
I
not really seem like where I
Not at
was going?
all. No.
genuinely
Okay.
didn't know he played. I knew he played guitar because he's played like acoustic guitar on
Hmm.
some tracks. I had no idea he was a bassist. So do you think he can play the jazz, like jazz bass, like
I don't.
with
Again,
Questlove?
it wouldn't really be. It wouldn't be like. It wouldn't be like the way Thundercat would do it. Like it wouldn't be
Mhm.
fantastic. It wouldn't. You wouldn't get a Grammy on this album for the bass playing on the jazz tracks,
But like
but
enough to like
it
for
would be
basic
enough.
like
To
backing
hold it.
bass.
It would be
Yeah.
enough. He wouldn't be taking any solos on bass, but that's
Hmm.
okay because the next guy that I have on here is really like the guy who will bring the jazz. Because again,
Okay.
Questlove, he's not like, again, I know he can play anything. Like he can, there are some jazz musicians that can't play rock or something like that. Questlove
Hmm.
can play rock, hip hop, jazz, any
Hmm.
style
Mm,
that you want.
yeah.
Yeah.
And Ty Dolla Sign can sing any style. Really, Ty Dolla Sign and Questlove is like all you need to create almost any style that you want because he can sing rock, he could even sing country. He could do like just an acoustic set. So that's who I have as the official bassist, but as
Wow.
background vocals, there's a whole bunch of other things. And he can rap too. So
Wow.
Yeah.
Okay.
yeah. All right. So for the pianist, I have this is actually one of my favorite artists of all time,
Mhm.
and it is Terrace Martin. Now,
Ooh.
Terrace Martin is primarily a saxophone player, but he also worked a lot with Herbie Hancock, and he could play piano really, really well. And for me, it was really a toss up between him and Robert Glasper, because Robert Glasper is an incredible pianist who does a lot of jazz, does a lot of R&B, and has worked with Ty Dolla Sign and Questlove extensively. But Terrace Martin has also worked with Ty Dolla Sign and Questlove extensively.
Mhm.
And only reason why I chose Terrace Martin is partially because he can also play saxophone and he can also sing. So that adds a little bit more versatility. So like you can have some saxophone on there. Um, and again, he's really, really good at the piano. Like Robert Glass, I don't think he's like the same level as Robert Glasper, but Terrace Martin is a fantastic pianist. Like he studied with Herbie Hancock, one of the greatest pianists of all time, for a
Mhm.
very long time.
Mhm.
So as far as like what I want to do, I'm like, yeah, as a saxophone player, I can't sacrifice having saxophone abilities on
Yeah.
there for
Yeah.
the pianist. So he's officially the pianist, but again, also can sing, also can rap a little bit. He released a whole album where he like rapped and sang and played sax and played piano and just basically did it all.
Wow. So really leaning into the like the jazz influence, if not
Hmm.
outright jazz in
Hmm.
your picks.
And again, like I don't think it would be an outright jazz album, and you can kind of tell by the lead vocalist, but it's
Hmm.
like if they needed to, they could. If they needed to do pop, they could. If they needed to do
Hmm.
R&B or hip hop, like hardcore R&B or hip hop, they could. And also,
Hmm.
Terrace Martin is also a producer. Like a lot of people don't know, he produced a lot of songs for Snoop Dogg.
Hmm.
And if you've heard Kendrick Lamar's All Right and Kendrick Lamar's, ooh, which one was it? Basically on the To Pimp a Butterfly, a lot of that
Hmm.
saxophone,
Hmm.
that's Terrace Martin.
Oh.
Oh, okay.
Huh.
Hmm. On Absol's intro from Good Kid, Mad City, Terrace Martin produced that track, and that's him playing saxophone on it.
Hmm.
Hmm.
So he ended up being like the top choice as a pianist. And
Hmm.
so, yeah, and so because he can play piano, like if he couldn't play piano, I would have chosen Robert Glasper. But because I know he can play piano and he can play it really well, especially live, he ends up taking the spot as the pianist.
I must say for like the saxophone route, I thought you would have gone with like a Kamasi Washington.
And Kamasi Washington was close because he was on a lot of those tracks
Hmm.
as well.
Hmm.
The only reason is because I haven't seen Kamasi Washington play piano,
Okay.
so I'm not entirely sure. Like, I'm sure he can. Oh,
This happens like every
I was
episode
just I was just naming reasons. I wasn't expecting
because
it to
you
send
start
me.
number one with your thumb.
Yeah,
Interesting. Yeah. Huh.
and it just
Okay.
sent like a
It
bubble.
happens every time you list something.
Okay,
One.
that was interesting. Don't really know why the bubble came up, but yeah. So I just didn't know if he could play piano, and I was like, I
Yeah.
need to have a pianist in there. And I also just didn't know if that was really the main reason. He also's not as much of a producer, and he's much like he was also on Kendrick Lamar's albums. Kamasi
Mhm.
Washington, very very amazing tenor saxophonist. Um, and he's one of those guys that I kind of feel like lives in the jazz world and doesn't really step out and do other things.
Mhm.
Which again, that's his artistic craft. But that's why I like Terrence Martin because he lives in jazz, but he also steps out. And again, same thing with Robert Glasper.
Mhm.
They live a lot in jazz, but if you ever heard Black Radio, which is a fantastic three different albums that Robert Glasper released, um, and they step out and do a lot of different things. So
Mhm.
yeah, Terrace Martin is the
What,
pick.
what I like
Okay.
too is with all those picks you're talking about and everything, I feel like the improvisational nature of jazz could definitely come through into
Mm.
those choices
Oh yeah.
if they did come together and make an album. It's cool. They could all riff together, but like you said, in multiple genres.
And like I said, I would have chosen like when we go back to bassist, like again, Thundercat would make a lot of sense because he can play jazz and he can play any other style that you need him to, and he's also a
Right.
great singer.
Mhm.
But Ty Dolla Sign's voice and the way it can just take over, I was like, I can't say no to that. Also, for the most part, almost every guitarist can play bass, but not every bassist can play guitar.
Mm.
So if you get really good at like any guitarist can play bass because bass is like if you just break it down, like you may not get like as technically good as someone like Thundercat, but like you can still do it.
For
But
like
not
function.
yeah, yeah. But not every bassist can play guitar. And I really wanted to have someone who could play guitar. Now I don't really think Ty Dolla Sign could do jazz guitar, but if we're
Mhm.
talking about an R&B track, like he has a song with Babyface called Solid. And
Oh
he's
yeah.
just strumming away acoustic guitar. And so, and again, I want someone who could do that. So, like, while you're in the middle of listening to this jazz song, suddenly it changes and you're just in this acoustic guitar space.
Yeah.
Like he could do folk if you want to. Anyway,
Mhm.
That
so,
would be cool. No.
right, my lead vocalist, it was kind of hard for me to decide this one. And I ended up going for versatility of sound, really, for like compared to like who I think would really fit extremely well. Like I think this person will fit extremely well. Um, but so like for my lead vocalist, I wanted it to be like a rapper, basically. I want someone who has a lot of really good technical rap skills and who is a
Mhm.
fantastic rapper. And so like my top choices was Lupe Fiasco and Chance the Rapper. And I was
Mhm.
going back and forth between them two because I'm
Mhm.
like, Chance has the vocal ability. I feel like he's a better singer than Lupe, but I feel like
Mhm.
Lupe is a better rapper than Chance.
Mhm.
But I'm like, I also Chance's voice can cross over really well into pop,
Mhm.
and I don't think Lupe's voice could ever really cross over. He doesn't really explore pop or anything like that. And again, I really wanted to go for like the versatility. Like again,
Mhm.
Chance the Rapper has piano ballads, same drugs. It's literally a piano ballad. You switch him out for anybody else, it's just a piano ballad. But
Mhm.
Lupe doesn't have songs like that. So I was
Mhm.
going back and forth between them, and then I realized what I think I want more than that,
Mhm.
especially after you mentioned Erica Badu as the lead singer for your band. I
Mhm.
want a female vocalist as well.
Mhm.
So that's why my lead vocal choice is going to end up being Lauren Hill.
Ooh, that's a
Whoa,
good
that's a
one. That's a
good
good pick.
one.
Yep. And that's because, again, she has the technical rap skill.
Yeah.
Now,
Mhm.
I
Mm.
love Lauren Hill. I think her Miseducation of Lauren Hill is, like Apple Music said, I think it is the
Greatest
best
album of
album
all
of all
time.
time. I would say that like I prefer like if I'm like going for like just off of rap, I would choose Lupe or Chance over her.
Mhm.
But because she can rap, really every single person that I listed on here can rap. So, because they've all rapped in their songs before. Even Questlove has rapped on one of the songs before.
Mhm.
So like the hip hop will still be there, and especially with Lauryn Hill, because she still has the lyrical ability. Like Ty Dolla Sign, Questlove, and Terrace Martin haven't really demonstrated any lyrical ability with their raps, like double entendres and stuff like that. Lauryn Hill has. And I think had she kept going with the Fugees and like we would have seen a lot more of her technical lyrical ability because on that album, like I think she on the score by the Fugees, to me, she has the best raps out of anybody combined, hands down, not even close. And I like her raps on the score better than the miseducation of Lauryn Hill. So I think she has it. We just didn't see it as much. You know what I mean? Like if Lauryn Hill had released as many albums as Chance or Lupe, I'd be talking about her lyrical rap abilities the same way I talk about them. Because I know she has it in her. We just haven't got to see it a whole lot. And so, there was a lot of like, I was like, do I really want Lauryn Hill? Because like, I'm also thinking about like the band performing live, and like Lauryn Hill's had a lot of problems with her voice because she gets a lot of vocal strings. She's been performing for a long time, but at the
Mhm.
same time, I'm like, well, you got Ty Dolla Sign in the group, you got Terrace Martin in the group. She's not gonna have to sing for an hour straight, so she'll be fine. You know what I mean? Like she'll have other people like, hey, Ty Dolla Sign, I need you to take over. So I try not to worry about that as much as well. I just think Lauryn Hill's the person that completes this because, again, especially imagine just like a ballad with Terrace Martin playing piano, Questlove adding some like shh, on the drum set, Ty Dolla
Mhm.
Sign laying down a bass line and singing with Lauryn Hill. Like a Ty Dolla Sign and Lauryn Hill ballad would sound so incredible.
Hmm.
I want that so much now. I want to hear a
Right?
duet with Ty Dolla Sign and
I
Lauryn
want it.
Hill.
I
I
need
I
want
it.
that
would.
so
I
bad. That
think I
sounds
need it.
so amazing.
Right. And I think if they wanted to cover like an old school jazz song like Autumn Leaves or something,
Hmm.
I don't think Lauryn Hill would start scatting, but she would sing the hook to Autumn Leaves.
Hmm.
She would, I mean, it's not the hook, sorry, the head. She could, I feel like she can sing most jazz songs.
Hmm.
And again, that's something that I don't know if Ty Dolla Sign could really sing every jazz song that there is, but I do feel like Lauryn Hill could do that. So like I wouldn't even come up with like obviously someone looking at this genre would say like R&B or neo soul, and that's kind of what it's from. But again, they have the ability to do pop, jazz, R&B, hip hop, all aspects of hip hop. You could be listening to a 60s style jazz song for 1 second on the album, and the next thing you know, they switched into a trap hybrid EDM track for the next one.
Hmm.
Hmm.
Because that's what this group would be able to do. And especially with the Roots, because they went through a lot of different genres as well. And they've incorporated rock into their hip hop elements in their
Hmm.
later albums. So I feel
Hmm.
like that's kind of what Questlove brings. So that is my super group. Questlove, Ty Dolla Sign, Terrace Martin, and Lauryn Hill. I was hoping I would come up with a name for it while we were talking, but I didn't come up with
That
one.
that is such a solid group. Like
Thank
I
you.
think it's good because like I'm excited. Like I want to listen to their album now. I want to
I'm like,
listen to this album right now.
I need Ty Dolla Sign and Lauryn Hill to make a collaborative album now. That's what I need. I didn't know I needed it until I suggested it right here.
Yeah, I think Ty Dolla Sign is just too underrated of a singer.
Hmm.
Like I
agree.
don't he should be in way more
Right.
way
And
more
he does
music.
a lot of hype songs, but like I feel like like on his own albums, he doesn't let his voice shine as much as he does on
Hmm.
features sometimes. And I'm
Hmm.
like a lot of times his albums will just kind of be about clubbing and partying. And it's like, yes, Ted Dolla Sign, I know you like to party. I know you like to club. That's not a secret. I want to hear your voice, man. Like, show me
Hmm.
Hmm.
that voice because you do it when you do features with Lupe. You do it when you do features with Brandy and Jagged Edge, but you don't
Hmm.
do it on your own. Like he has one song on one of his albums where he really lets his voice shine. And that's Your Turn, featuring Black and Music Soul Child. My
Hmm.
wife and I love that song. But I'm like, for the most part, on his albums, like if I was going based off of his albums, I probably wouldn't even pick him. I only
Mhm.
know he's this good because of what he's done when he's featured. And I
Yeah.
also love that he will feature on almost anything. Like
Mhm.
he literally like he's been on so many songs because someone's like, hey, you want to? And to me, like that collaborative nature, I love that for an artist, and I love that in the band. So that's why I'd say he's kind of more of the linchpin than Questlove is, just because he's got that collaborative energy, and his voice itself lends itself to so much that this group can do whatever they want.
It's very versatile.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah.
They could
Yeah.
even do reggae. You could hear
I
Ty
th-
Dolla $ign singing reggae.
I
I can
think
see it. Yeah, I can see that.
I think
Mhm.
your group would be ripe for like a double LP. Like I could
Mm.
picture a double like with so much variety of sound to explore. Like
Yep.
I could hear 18 tracks from this group like
It's too much
no
music.
problem.
Yeah.
Too
Did you
much.
guys both
Mm.
know who Terrace Martin was before I described him? Because I know I mentioned him to Ty. Did you know him? No?
Not a clue.
No?
Nope.
Okay.
No, but
I went off
I'm
to the side real quick and I was like, let me just
yeah,
look
that's
him
what
up.
I was Googling
Yeah.
like who's this Terrace
Well,
Martin?
he has an album called Three Chord Fold,
Mhm.
and it features Ty Dolla $ign, features Kendrick Lamar, features Absol, features
Mm.
a whole bunch of different artists that he's worked with and produced for. And it didn't really get that big, but I think Wiz Khalifa's on it too. Also, there's Dinner Party, which is an EP by Robert Glass. It did the thumbs up thing again. Anyway, there's an EP called Dinner Party with Robert Glasper and Terrace Martin and Kamasi Washington. And I think the producer is his name escapes me. Ninth Wonder. And that's it would probably be a similar sound to that with this group, but just more and more diverse and more eclectic. Yeah,
I
so it's my
am
super
well,
group,
I'm very excited to check Terrace Martin out now.
right?
Like
Yeah.
for that versatility.
And I guess we'll have to share Questlove because I wasn't really expecting you to
He
pick him,
can he can
honestly.
take really?
No, no. I,
What
I
did you
wasn't like expecting Travis Barker, but I do think I was expecting more of like a alternative rock guy. I was
Yeah.
expecting you to lean more towards like that area. So,
I think because I've heard so many rock super groups in my life that
uh-huh.
every time, like they're all great, but I can never think of like what to do new with them. They always just end up sounding like each of them doing their thing to do something good. But I was trying to think more of like I hear so much of it. It's like it's not necessarily something that I haven't heard before from super
Mm,
groups that already exist. Like my favorite super rock super group, Audio Slave, is amazing. I love Chris Cornell, the vocalist of Soundgarden.
mhm.
Um, a fantastic, and he kills it on that. But I don't think in this like exercise, I don't think I wanted to include him on anything new because I want to hear something new. I want to hear like what are the things that otherwise probably wouldn't exist.
Mm.
I feel that. Feel that in my soul. Yeah. Yeah.
Well,
All
Caleb,
right.
number three, you got a big act to follow
Oh, y'all not ready, man.
after that one.
Oh, I've been ready. I picked four musicians, and I feel like I took a completely different approach from you guys. I feel like with
Okay.
you guys, you took the approach of, okay, here's pianos, here's drums. You know what I
Mhm.
mean? However, I feel like I picked someone who I was like, okay, this is a producer, this is a mixer, this person can clean it up. And I wanted people who I was like, who are really good at improvisation, who would just come together, improv, and it would just sound good.
Mhm.
Okay.
So I'm gonna start you off easy. My first pick was Ella Fitzgerald. I know that sounds weird.
Oh, that
I
does
know
not
that
Oh,
sound
sounds
weird at
weird.
all.
Okay. And I was thinking one, because like you said, she's got like that jazzy energy, which I feel like would be good. She's got a beautiful voice. And she was really renowned for her ability to improv. I feel like she's done so much for music. She's still iconic over 100 years later. Um, And so I was like, okay, I feel like I would love to have her voice and her ability to improv.
Mm-hmm.
I feel like
Mhm.
some of the people who I say are going to be somewhat controversial. Um, my next one I'm going to say is Jimi Hendrix. It was so funny when you were
How is that
talking about
controversial?
he's not controversial. Wait for me, okay?
Okay, okay.
But when you said Jimi Hendrix earlier and you said you didn't go with him, I was like, oh, I was like, is he gonna steal my guy? Well, you did it. It was great. But I was thinking definitely Jimi Hendrix, just because one, I like I like hip hop and I like rock and
Mm-hmm.
I love the mesh. I love it when people can properly combine the two genres like rock, R&B, hip hop, like kind of more versatile like you guys were talking about.
Mm-hmm.
Um but I definitely feel like Jimi Hendrix, I would love to hear his guitar in there. I
Yeah.
would love his guitar, love the improvisational uh uh kind of almost like you're talking about jazz. Like he kind of brought like a jazzy nature to rock music.
Mm-hmm.
Just the way he would go about it. I would love that. I'm like, mwah, I want that.
Yeah,
Well,
and
and
there's
if you
not many
can't,
that have like tried to
yeah,
replicate his style. Like it's still
Exactly.
yeah.
like to this day, it still feels so unique to go back and
Mm,
listen to how he plays.
And
Like
you
it's
can't talk about the greatest guitarist of all time and not talk about Jimi Hendrix. Like
Mhm.
he's in that conversation and probably the one for a lot of people. And like how I mentioned, like even though I know Ty Dolla $ign can play guitar, I don't know if he could do jazz guitar. Jimi Hendrix can do jazz guitar. If you need
yeah.
someone to
Mhm.
take a 10-minute solo over Lazy Bird, Jimi Hendrix will do it with Ella
Mhm.
Fitzgerald crooning in the background, according to me,
Yeah.
Get
which
Eric
I love.
Clapton out of the conversation. Put Jimi Hendrix in his place.
Oh my gosh. Well, I
Oh,
mean, just talking about Jimi Hendrix, his song Voodoo Child, that's
Mhm.
one of the inspirations for that song Voodoo Child was the fact that he played the guitar so well, but so unique. Apparently, maybe fact check me on this, but my understanding is that when he went to the UK, some people were like, "Oh my gosh, he plays this so crazy. He's like a voodoo child." And so as a result, he made a song out of it and he brings that beauty into that song. And it's just like he's got to be there for me. He's
oh
got to be
Yeah.
yes.
there.
No, that's solid. Oh, I was just gonna say that's such a solid pick. Like I
Mhm.
couldn't be happier with a Hendrix pick on your side. That's really good.
Okay, so my third pick is Juice World. And
Oh.
I feel like that's somewhat a how do we feel about that? Are we like, yeah, no, okay? I feel like Juice World, he would be a really good pick because one, his ability to freestyle. Like his
Mhm.
ability to freestyle, he was an amazing rapper. And I would love that. I feel like sometimes his freestyles kind of highlighted his rap ability better than some of his songs did.
Mhm.
Um, I would love to have that. But if you hear like if you see any interview where Benny Blanco's talking about Juice World, he talks about how he would just go in the booth, just come up with something, and it was just like a rock solid, like it was a hit every time.
Yeah.
And he would be like, hey, pick a song. All of them are valid, all of them are amazing. And so I would love that. Plus, I like how Juice World, he takes a lot of inspiration from rock again,
Mhm.
and he kind
Hmm.
of mixed that into his sound. So I'd love to have him for the combination of one, improv, two, hip hop, rap, trap, and then also, uh, just I feel like he would kind of bounce off Jimi Hendrix well. I feel
Mhm.
like that his rock nature mixed with Jimi Hendrix, I feel like that would be an interesting balance. And then I feel like his ability to improvise and kind of just rap off the top of his head, mixed with Ella Fitzgerald's improv improv skills, just in the
Yeah.
booth. I would love to see that all combined.
I'm thinking too, I gotta say that is a very left field pick. I was not
Uh-huh.
expecting
I was
it
not expecting it either.
100%, but I can see the vision a little bit, a little bit more with that improvisation. I think too, like I like Juice World when he gets almost into that like emo, like that very
Yes.
emotional style with his singing and rapping that I think I think I can picture a world where that bounces off of Ella Fitzgerald's singing
Mm.
and just like a really like emotive song. Like it reminds me in a weird way that did you guys ever hear about that duo album where it was I think it was either Lady Gaga or Madonna who did an album with Pat no, not Pat Benatar. Like a classic like Frank Sinatra-esque singer.
Huh.
Um
Uh,
and I'm just picturing something like that.
I think I know what you're talking about.
I
Um,
I can't let me
I
find
can't
it
think of
real
it
quick.
either.
Tony Bennett and Lady Gaga.
Tony Bennett, yes.
oh, okay.
They did two uh albums like together. And it's so weird to hear like her like pop style like fuse with his like more classical like singer songwriter style. But I can picture something similar with like a Juice World and Ella Fitzgerald almost.
Yes, interesting. I'll have to look that up. I'm curious. I want to hear that Tony Bennett and Lady Gaga combination. I'm gonna
And I
do
f-
that after this.
and I
Yeah.
feel like the perfect bridge for Juice World and Ella Fitzgerald, like if someone was like told me like, yeah, Juice World and Ella Fitzgerald started a band, I would be like, what? Juice World and Ella, like what? Like I would, but then if you say like, oh well, like Jimi Hendrix is in it, then it's like, oh, okay. Because it's like I see exactly how Jimi Hendrix style lends to Ella Fitzgerald and Juice World. And imagining, like, I feel like he would be the one to bring them together. Like he'd be like, Ella, we've done a lot of shows together, but there's this one artist who I don't know if you've heard of him before, but I've done a couple of shows with him, and like he can do like this cool rock rap thing that I think you're really gonna like. And like I feel like if they were like all around at the same time, he would be the one bringing them together because,
Mhm.
again, I feel like Ella Fitzgerald and Juice WRLD come from very different worlds, but Jimi
Yeah.
Hendrix, I feel like has lived in both worlds because again, Juice WRLD has done some of that emo um rock. Like if he wanted to do a punk song with Jimi Hendrix, that's exactly what they would do, and it
Yeah.
would be
Hmm.
like
Yeah.
that I was not expecting that. You almost should have started and just said Ella Fitzgerald and then Juice World. And then like what?
And then
And
left the
then be like,
call.
okay, and then Jimi Hendrix. It would be like, oh, okay, that's how they come together. Because I wouldn't have got it.
So my fourth pick, and I feel like my fourth pick after this, I'll kind of explain how I feel like they all wrap together and what place I would like them in to
Okay.
create music. Um, Kanye West. I feel
Okay.
like I feel like Kanye, he's that's who I felt like would be more controversial because I don't think he's firing on all four cylinders right now.
Well, if we can choose artists who are dead, we can choose artists from the best point in their lives.
Yeah,
So
Good
we can
point.
choose a graduation,
we can
late
take 2010
registration Kanye.
Kanye, My Beautiful Dark Twisted Fantasy Kanye. Like I said, if we can bring Jimi Hendrix back, we can take him
Be-
from peak Kanye.
Before
Yeah.
he ever got onto Reddit or 4chan or some deep web alt-right forum or
Before
something.
he fired his publicist, before any of that.
Yeah.
Here's a good way to put it. I said Kanye West, not Ye. Ye is a
Yeah.
whole different. He
Yeah.
changed his
Whole
name to
different ball game.
Ye.
It's the split
Exactly.
personality.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Big Ye.
Exactly. Um, but even though Kanye West, I feel like he's definitely very conceited and but he's very talented. Like I feel like he's a really good producer. And I
Mhm.
feel like I mean, even like the song "Through the Wire," like "Through the Wire, through the wire, like I just, you're welcome. I blessed you with that. But like he took
Oh,
that sound from like that. I think it's originally like an '80s song or something like that, and then he turned it into a B, and he rapped over it. So I feel like with my four people I picked, I would love to have a hook, almost like a hook by Ella Fitzgerald, or she could just sing. And I feel like Kanye could mix it into a beat. I feel like Ella Fitzgerald with her singing, and then Jimi Hendrix with his guitar could create such a nice sounding beat.
Mhm.
I feel like,
Oh
and if
yeah.
anybody could do it, I feel like it would be Kanye. And
Ooh.
then that plus maybe the hook from her as well. Shoot, maybe even a hook from Jimmy. And I feel like Juice World would hear the very creative mixing of Kanye, and he would automatically be like, I know what verses would go great over this.
So let me
I
get
could
this.
I could
Yeah.
picture like Ella starting off singing, Kanye mid improv takes that and samples it into a beat
Oh, you
that
took what I
then
was gonna
gets
say.
played live, and then Juice World starts rapping on top of it, and then
Yes!
I was gonna
Hendrix
say.
comes in and starts riffing.
I was
Oh,
gonna say.
yes.
Jimi Hendrix and Ella Fitzgerald just start doing a classic jazz song, whether it's Autumn Leaves or whatever. Kanye West takes it, samples it, creates a whole beat out of it, and then Juice WRLD just goes
Mhm.
crazy on top of it.
Oh
Yes.
yeah. I can see the vision now. I can see
Thank
the
you.
vision
Okay,
now.
good, good. I'm glad you guys met me here.
And honestly, like to me, Kanye West is one of the greatest producers ever. Like
Yeah.
top
Mhm.
of my list is Quincy Jones. Number two is probably Kanye because he didn't just like people usually think of him as hip hop. He used to make beats for Jay-Z and Talib Kweli, and then of course for himself as an artist. But again, he made songs for Alicia Keys. He's made songs for
Mhm.
Beyonce. He's made so many different beats and so many different styles that I really do think that he deserves. And I feel like you can hear most of those styles come together on My Beautiful Dark Twisted Fantasy, which is a very intense album, but it has a lot of the variation in style of production. I feel like that's where we kind of, to me, that's peak production Kanye, because I prefer like Late Registration is my favorite album by him, but you can
Mhm.
still hear a very similar tone in production throughout the entire album. It's kind of like shifting from a almost 90s hip hop feel into a more alternative hip hop feel, and it kind of stays in that way. But My Beautiful Dark Twisted Fantasy goes all over the place, from ballads to intense trap songs, and it's such an eclectic mix of production styles, and I feel like that album is what really shows up what Kanye can do as a producer. And
No, and
so,
Mhm.
yeah.
yeah, and I agree. And uh, I feel like if Kanye wasn't as talented as he is as a producer, I don't think he'd still be famous. I feel like he's had
Mhm.
entirely too many scandals. However, when it comes to like being a producer and just uh, listening to music and sounds and how he mixes them and creates songs, he's a genius. I feel like
Mhm.
he's a genius as a producer.
He's
Yeah,
crazy,
I
but he
think
is a
his
crazy
style
genius.
has left like a fingerprint on
Mhm.
hip hop like to this day. Like as far like off the edge as he may go today, like forever like hip hop has been shaped
Yeah,
by his production style. Like the 2000s would not have been the same for music if it weren't for him in it.
yeah.
I completely agree, and I think he paved the way for a lot of different people. And I think he paved the way for guys like Drake, and a lot of he definitely paved the way for Lupe Fiasco,
Mhm.
just from an artist standpoint. And like I said, Late Registration is one of my favorite albums of all time because there are just some. Have you ever heard Late Registration before, Caleb?
No.
It is so good. Oh my God, you have to listen to it. Like
Yeah.
my brother hates hip hop and he loves that album. At least the
Mhm.
the parts of the album that I played for him, because there are some parts of it that are so funny. They are so funny, and it's just to me it's my favorite Kanye album. But yeah, and I think that is such an so like our choices kind of ended up being more similar than I was anticipating.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Because I thought Caleb, I really thought you were gonna go more country, And like I said, Ty, I thought you were gonna go more alternative rock, but we
Mhm.
all kind of landed on like a hip hop, jazz, R&B feel.
Rock,
Like,
yeah. Mhm.
Yeah, we did.
like that's kind of what's been represented is like throughout most of this. So that is very funny. I mean, I don't know if that just goes to show the versatility of these musicians.
Mm.
But one more time, I want to go around so we can each name them like back to back. Like, so
Mhm.
we'll start with Ty. Ty, your super group again, one more time.
It's Flea on bass slash maybe jazz trumpet, Erica Badu on vocals, Questlove on drums, and then David Gilmour of Pink Floyd fame on guitar.
You've been. I'm writing all this down too, so I can remember David Gilmour. Okay, for me, it was on drums. We have Questlove, of course. On bass, we have Ty Dolla Sign. Well, bass and guitar. For piano and saxophone, we have Terrace Martin, and lead vocals, we have Lauren Hill.
And for me, we have Ella Fitzgerald just bringing her voice, and her talent as a singer. Um, Jimi Hendrix, voice and guitar. Um, Juice World for his lyricism, and then Kanye West. He can take that, add noises, mix it all up as a producer, and make it magic.
I
These are
think I
some.
think that Juice World Ella Fitzgerald combo is the most shocking of all of the picks here. That is definitely the one that caught me off guard the most.
I felt like when I was gonna say Juice World and Kanye, I was like, I need to have a good explanation to why I'm putting them next to Jimi Hendrix and Ella Fitzgerald.
Writing the defense.
But you
Wait, hear me
guys,
out, hear me out.
exactly. But it sounds like you guys were like, okay, I see your vision. I'm like, yes, thank you.
I
Okay, we all see it.
That's part of the
Yeah.
exercise. I want to hear some crazy combos.
And
Yeah.
again, like there was kind of some overlap that could have been like Jimi Hendrix kind of overlapped with Ella Fitzgerald a little bit.
Mhm.
Kanye West had been making beats before Ella Fitzgerald died, so there was some overlap there because he got started in the late 80s, early 90s. And then, obviously Kanye's still going and Juice World passed away. When did he die? A few years ago?
2019.
2019.
2019, yeah.
But you know what? Juice World and Ella Fitzgerald were never alive at the same time. She had died 2 years before he was even born.
I was gonna say I'm pretty sure they were not alive at the same time. They didn't overlap.
Mm-mm,
So yeah, and Jimi Hendrix didn't overlap with Kanye or Juice World. So
mm-mm.
well, did
This
he
is
overlap with Kanye? When was Kanye born? Was he because I think he was born in the 70s or 80s.
He had to be the
70,
70s.
77. He
77.
was
Okay,
born
so yeah.
77, so no overlap.
So he didn't overlap. So yeah, yeah. So in Caleb's group, three of the artists are no longer with us, and one of them is kind of no longer with us, but in a different way. But like I said, we could still take them from their best times. And yeah, I'm still trying to come up with a name for my group, but I'm like, I don't even know what I would call them.
The
Yeah, so I
name.
guess I want to ask Caleb, what do you want most out of this group? Are you looking for just like improvisational live performances? Do you want like a studio album? Like,
Mm, man, I'd like at least one song, but an album, I think an album would be phenomenal. I think I would love an whole album. I would love an album
mhm,
because, like I said, I would love at some point for there to be just a guitar riff from Jimi Hendrix, where it's just like him accentuating that talent. And you can just hear the guitar. And I could also see his guitar at some point being chopped into a beat, you know what I mean,
mhm,
by Kanye. And
mhm,
I just I feel like there's so many different songs that they could make, and I feel like they would all be in such I feel like it'd be so unique. There'd be so many
mhm.
different directions being pulled into like single songs, just so many different energies, and yes, I'd love an album.
Yeah.
Mhm. And I think for me, like, and I can't. So the name of my group, I just thought of it while you guys were talking. The name of my group would be Essentially, and that would be it. That's their name, Essentially. And so I would love to see them do a whole album, and I would love to see
Hmm.
them live. Like I've been getting into a lot more
Essentially.
live concerts, and I'd love to see them tour. And that's partly why I was like, do I want to pick Lauren Hill? Because like obviously album wise, fantastic. But I'm like, like we were supposed to go see her at the Spectrum Center, and she canceled the show like a month before because she kind of does that a lot. Because again, she experiences a lot of vocal strain. But again, I'm
Mhm.
like, if you've got Ty Dolla Sign in the group, even with Terrace Martin in the group, she'll have plenty of time to be able to relax if need be, if her voice is straining. And if she can't sing a certain part, like I feel like Ty Dolla Sign can easily just step in and do it. So
And I think if we're bringing people back from the dead, I think we can we can bring people without vocal strain.
yeah, from their peak performance times. And I don't know if
Yeah.
this is something she's always experienced or if it's just been lately as she's gotten older. But yeah, I would agree with that too. Yeah. So Ty, how about your group? Would you want to hear just an album? Do you want them to tour? Do you want them? What's your vision there?
I want I want like a festival-esque performance. I'm picturing each of these people are kind of playing their own group or set individually, and then they come together as like the headliner. So like I want the Red Hot Chili Peppers, and then I want the Roots, and then I want, Erica Badu to do a couple of tracks. And then I want very aged Pink Floyd. And then I want to see the four of them come together at the very end and do like a full like hour and a half, 2 hour set.
So David Gilmour, does he have any kind of background in jazz guitar? I realized I meant to ask that because I wasn't really sure. Because I know you said Flea has done jazz before, but I don't know, has David Gilmour done it or
That wasn't, he may have, just not for like the reasons I'm picking him. I
yeah,
wanted
okay.
him for the psychedelic, almost the ambient
Yeah.
like side of his guitar playing, because I think he really succeeds in making these soundscapes just very, like get a couple of pedals and like turn the reverb up a little bit, and you just get this like he's really great at focusing these ambient like echoey spaces for other music that I think could fit in.
Yeah.
Like I enjoy it on its own, but I'm picturing that with just like a soulful, like smooth Erica Badu, just right in the middle of just like this ambient psychedelic sound, and then maybe like a little bit of a bass solo from Flea, where he starts it off like simple, but then he starts like tearing into it, all while like Questlove is just keeping us jazzy throughout. Like that's what I'm envisioning.
Mm-hmm. And like, oh, I had a thought and I just lost it.
I
Man,
came up with the
it was
name.
cool too. You can't with okay, let's hear Kayla's name. Maybe I'll think of it again.
As you were talking and everything, I was listening, but I was like, man, what would I come up with for a name for them? I feel like this is a weird name, but I feel like this is what would make them stand out. I would go with like Neo Noise or like Neo Noise Box.
Neo
Neo Noise
noise. Okay.
Box.
Neo Noise Box. One Neo, like new, um, Neo new. I just saw a text message and it distracted me.
It's all good.
New noise. I kind of want the box, kind of like a juice box. You know what I mean? I
Yeah.
played around with a
Uh-huh.
couple different thoughts like jukebox, juice box, world, neo noise world. I was thinking maybe like that, but I don't know. I feel like kind of like it made me think of Daft Punk. You know how like Daft Punk is such an iconic name. However, they got that name Daft Punk from reading a newspaper article, and some people were like, "Oh, listen to these Daft Punks." Like it was British for someone just being like
Yeah.
these crazy punks. And so I feel like it kind of has that energy where it's like, "Ugh, what is this noise?" And it's like it's neo noise. And I just feel like it sounds
Yeah.
cool.
And I
Yeah.
feel, and like when we go like through the styles that like this groups can do, like I feel like something that your groups kind of have over, like one thing that I think your groups could both do is definitely more funk, because we know that Flea can definitely do that slap bass style. I'm
Mhm.
100% certain Jimi Hendrix could pick up a bass and do slap bass. Because again, like you said, most guitarists can play bass, and we know Jimi Hendrix can play bass. But like Ty Dolla $ign, I don't really know if he could do the slap bass that you need in funk.
Mhm.
Maybe he could pick it up, but I think he would also, because he's done some funk songs before, but they'd be like more smooth and not really as like funky. So
Mhm.
yeah, all that is just so interesting when you look at like our different choices and why we picked who we did. And I love it. And I'm like, do we need to come back and just do this with like a whole different group? I'm like, I'm almost like, I don't even know if I could pick a whole group because I'm already so attached that I'm gonna send like fan mail to each of these people and be like, I know you don't know who I am, but I personally think you should make a group with these artists.
Pretty pleased with the cherry on top.
Pretty
I don't
please.
even need the royalties. I just want to hear the music.
Right. Like I
Right?
will donate what I have in savings. So
Hmm.
$3.25, if
Hmm.
that helps you guys get together and make this happen just for me.
Yes, I couldn't agree more.
So yeah, so those are our super groups. Leave us your super groups in the comments.
Hmm.
If you have some musicians, artists, they could just be all artists, or they could be, and like I said, when they asked the question, I feel like they ended up just giving their top 5 artists. And I'm like, that's not really what the question is, because we're forming a
Hmm.
super group. So it's a little
Yeah.
bit different than just your top 5 artists.
Yeah.
So I think what we came up with perfectly embodies this. And I want to hear what everyone else's thoughts are. So please tell us, who would you pick in your top in a 4-member super group? And
Hmm.
I like what you said earlier, Ty, how you feel like you didn't end up going rock because like a lot of rock supergroups just kind of ended up making more rock music. Like it didn't really like stand
Mm.
out or allow each person to shine. And that's
Hmm.
kind of the way jazz worked as well. Because there's been a lot of jazz supergroups, like
Hmm.
Miles Davis would get together with Max Roach, and Charles Mingus would bring Charlie Parker along. And it was amazing. And like it was some of the most iconic music ever,
Hmm.
but they weren't bringing genres together. They weren't breaking new ground. They were
Hmm.
just doing more jazz with just really famous people, which kind of sounds like what those rock supergroups were. It felt more like, let's get some famous people in a room rather than like, let's create something new with all these different styles mixed in. And I feel
Yeah.
like these supergroups that we've picked, these are new styles mixing in. They are creating something that has never been done before.
Yes.
And
Hmm.
I love it so much. So again, thank you guys for joining us. Leave your
Yeah.
thoughts below. Tell us who your supergroups would be, and we will see you next time.
Until next time.
See y'all.